Okay, hello, Jacy.
Hello,
I am
hello.
so excited.
Me too. Thank you for having
Um,
me.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being a part of the Keep Social Media Social community and network. I know you, and I know people at our magazine will be reading about you. But for those people who want to see the extended interview, I would love it. I'll just do a quick intro of my knowledge of you, but then I would love it if you would introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll kick this off. This is Jacy James Anderson, and he is one of the coolest artists in Colorado, in my opinion. He is a musician, and Jacy and I served on a panel together back in 2019. That's how we were originally connected. And Jacy, full disclosure, Jacy has worked with McLernon and Co. Jacy invested in an intensive strategy session back when you were working on your Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And Jacy, I remember that intensive strategy session because I don't know if I've ever seen anyone take so many notes based on what we talked about and your plan for running a kick-ass Kickstarter. And you did it and you implemented it and you had an amazing Kickstarter. You hit your goal, and then your album, you sent your album to production. I think that's the right word. I'm sorry if I
Yeah.
got it wrong. And then everything was amazing, and the album was about to debut. It was debuting. COVID.
COVID. Just the best timing in music history,
Yeah, let's
probably.
just let's
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just release something. So that's how Jacy and I know each other. But Jacy, why don't you give our viewers just a little bit more of a background into who you are, what you do, and I'm also going to change this view really quick just in
Cool.
case. I think this
Yeah.
is I think this is it now for those of you watching. So, yeah, Jacy,
Perfect.
please tell us about yourself.
Yeah, awesome. My name's Jacy James Anderson. I'm a singer-songwriter based out of Fort Collins, Colorado. I was born here in Fort Collins, but I grew up in Hawaii, and I went to Berklee College of Music to study songwriting. So I was there for 4 years, working with a lot of really amazing people. I toured the Eastern Seaboard for a while with a few artists, actually playing lead guitar for them. And during that time, just kind of decided I wanted to explore my own artistry a bit more. And I had missed the mountains of Colorado, and that brought me back here to this lovely state. And yeah, that's where I got into programming as my day job, which is how Amanda and I met on that panel. Yeah, and then basically just while I was working, started to actually experience a lot of things around anxiety. And that led to be the primary influence for my debut record, Blackout Poetry, which I debuted in 2020. Great timing. Yeah, but I'm a gigging musician, love writing songs with people. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. And can I just say it is a little bit ironic to me that you released an album that came out in 2020 that was inspired by anxiety. Like,
Yeah, sometimes I think about that, and even though it was written and finished pre-COVID, it almost feels like such a COVID album in
mhm.
terms of like that was potentially the right time for it to come out, even if it was bad in other ways. It just is
Yeah,
so
yeah.
reminiscent of that time and what so many folks are going through.
It absolutely was. And, I know it was a poor timing in terms of you being able to play it live and share it live with the world. But what was your experience from an online standpoint? And right now, let's go to album debut. We will come to a point where I want to talk about your Kickstarter and just everything
Yeah.
you learned about being social online. But take us to 2020, the debut. And, was your album able to help people through some of the challenges of COVID? Or, what did you hear from your online community?
Yeah, absolutely. I think once like what was so nice about having the Kickstarter before that is it was a great way to connect deeper with people that would either my friends, family, and eventually fans, hopefully even people I don't know. And so when I released the record, there was that framework and that groundwork that was already done. And that allowed people to, instead of diving into maybe the songs that I released as singles that were the most palatable, they were able to dive deeper into the material and find the songs that to me were the deepest about my experience with anxiety that might be harder for people to get into, say, on the radio or something. So what was really cool was people really seemed to gravitate towards the songs that to me were the biggest expression of what I'd gone through and the healing I'd gone through. And having people just, I think we're going to talk about the wave of panic later. And that was a song that I heard a lot about during that time where people would be like, wow, yeah, like that was a lot of things that I've felt. And it was very healing for me as well in that sense, just to know that, okay, well, the world is kind of stormy right now, and we can still come together in the fact that we're experiencing some of these things together at the same time, even if we're apart. So it was cool that people dug into that in the album.
Yeah, that is really cool. And I'm really glad to hear that, yeah, your experience and those songs were able to hold people through that challenging time. I know a lot of us leaned into music and arts and creativity, and not just creating our own, but really celebrating, celebrating the work of others. And so I know I had some of your songs on some of my playlists and Spotify playlists, which I know we're going to talk about where to find you, but right now, if everyone can just pull out their phone while they're listening to this and go to Spotify and go to Jacy James Anderson, they'll see that. But yeah, I think that's really important. I know we're going to talk about the wave of panic. I honestly, let's dive into this right now. I want to
Sure.
know. I'm not going to start with the song though. I want to start with your experience. And so I know you were telling us that you started having some of experiences with anxiety as it related to your career. Can you just walk us through? Can you just tell us your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd mentioned briefly that I was touring on the Eastern Seaboard. I was living on Cape Cod, actually, in Massachusetts, and I just decided I needed to do something drastic. I've always been a leap of faith guy. I just like to go for it and dive right in. So I decided to move out to Colorado, and at that time I was moving. I was changing careers. I was learning how to program, and I was starting to step into the shoes of myself as a solo artist. So I think there was so much pressure at that time, and I was so going through life not checking that pressure and not checking how I was feeling and how I was moving through day-to-day life that I think this anxiety just started to build up. And the funny thing about it, about anxiety, is you don't always know that you're in it until you're deep, deep in it, and it just comes on. So for me,
I know
that
that
kind of
so much.
yeah, it comes out of nowhere, and that's kind of why it's good to, check on yourself daily and make sure you're doing well. But basically, what happened was one day I was hanging out with a friend. We were watching my favorite movie of all time, which is The Big Lebowski. It's a comfort movie usually for me, and I had an immense panic attack during the middle of it. It was the first one I'd ever had, and I thought I was dying. I thought I was having a heart attack. Luckily, my friend Chase had seen this kind of behavior before, and
Mhm.
so they were able to guide me through some breathing exercises and get me to calm down before I rushed off to the ER.
Wow.
But that kind of started this domino effect of that anxiety would rise to such an intense level as a panic attack that it would scare me about having any more. Which
Yep.
the funny thing about anxiety is it's cyclical. So it would just lead to more and more and more panic attacks. And
Neat.
so eventually, yeah, right, it's lovely. And then eventually that was diagnosed as a panic disorder because I would walk around town, I'd see a dog or I'd be washing dishes or something like just normal everyday stuff and I would have the panic attack and it was really hard to maintain. So really that is where a lot of this came from, but also in my mind knowing that if I didn't do something about it, that I might not be here forever. And I like this life too much, so I wanted to do something about it. And that was going to therapy, that was an intense meditation practice, and really just honing in on what was going on and how to treat myself better.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for I want to hold space for your experience. And I also want to hold space for anyone listening, watching, or
Hmm.
reading with us right now, who has had a similar experience. I do want to talk a little bit more. I want to talk more about your healing. But first, I think one of the things that you mentioned is that sometimes we don't know how deep we are into anxiety until we're there. But I want to hear from you what anxiety feels like and maybe some
Yeah.
red flags that you've noticed now within your body, especially for those with us right now who maybe don't know yet how to notice it in their bodies or are unsure. Do you mind speaking to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can at least speak to how it feels for me and just note that it might be different for anyone that's
Yep.
watching this or reading this. But yeah, for me, I mainly feel it right here as a tightness in
Yeah.
my chest, like a kind of compression. Like even retelling that story, I'm like, ooh, yeah, there's
This,
that compression.
yep.
Yeah. And another part of it is really negative self-talk and being really, like, oftentimes cruel to yourself or maybe cruel to others. It's just kind of a repeating cycle, as well as for me, it can be racing thoughts, really. And yeah, those are really the main ones, yeah, that I can think of right now. But the primary one I feel is would be chest tension.
Yeah. I
Or
feel.
help and heart palpitations as well
Yep.
from time to time. Yep.
Yep. No, thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important that we recognize what anxiety feels like in the body. Because again, sometimes in the mind, again, you have your thoughts are racing on other tracks. And so
Yeah.
sometimes it does take the recognition of what's going on with the body to say,
Hmm.
oh, I
Yeah.
see this, I feel this. Okay. And then, depending on where you're at in your relationship with it and the tools
Hmm.
you have, you can address it the way that you need to. Now, with that being said, talk us through. I love that I love that you talk about therapy and meditation. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I love cognitive behavioral therapy. So
Hmm.
CBT. um,
Good old CBT.
yeah, good old CBT.
Yeah.
And I also love, I love meditation. I have the app
Hmm.
Headspace. Shout out Headspace.
Yep.
There's also a
Shout
great
out
app
Headspace.
called Calm. I don't currently utilize Calm, but my family does, and they say it's great. Um, I want to know a little bit, just can you tell us about your journey with therapy and meditation? And did you have any hesitations going to therapy at first?
Hmm. Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, so to start, I think one of the things that's so difficult is our healthcare system isn't necessarily open to giving people what they need quickly. And so I remember first thing I went to was my phone because it was accessible. That I'd be feeling these things, I'd be Googling what the heck I was experiencing, why am I feeling like this? And it's funny you mentioned Headspace because I think that's where I ended up first. I used it a little bit in college, I think, when I just wanted to experiment with meditation.
Mm-hmm.
But I sat down and Andy Puddicombe, the teacher at Headspace, the original one, I always loved his stuff so much. It was really digestible, like 3 minutes of
Yep.
meditation to start.
Or
And
like five
so,
breaths, right?
exactly, yeah, like it could literally be as simple as that. Like that, this thing is accessible anywhere you need it. But when your brain is so trained on anxiety, you don't know that oh, I can breathe, I can focus on this thing right now.
Mhm.
And so using that app at least got me my foot in the door with meditation. And so I started at 3 minutes, ramp it up to 5 minutes, 10, and then eventually 20 and on. So really that's how I started. And that was trying to be aware of like, oh, hey, you just kind of talked smack about yourself in your head. And like, what was that? And there's a technique called noting where when thoughts are coming through your head, you can be like, oh, hey, well, that was a thought or a feeling if you felt something physical. Was that anxiety? Was that jealousy? Was that anger? Was that happiness? Was that joy? All of these things. And then how do I feel about it? Was that a neutral feeling? Was that positive, negative? And that was really, really helpful because I started to realize, oh, you've got a lot of these negative self-talk thoughts coming through your head. But also, when I would see something beautiful, I would recognize that and be like, wow, that's like if I'm in the mountains hiking, I'd be like, that's amazing. And really, I feel like the next step from there was going to therapy, though I should say that when I was first looking, and hopefully this would be helpful for someone, I always thought therapy had such a high price
Yep.
boundary, and which it does often. Don't want to diminish that at all. But somebody told me about sliding scale counseling,
Yes.
which is incredible. And it's so there was somewhere in Denver that I just Googled sliding scale counseling or therapy, and that came up. And basically, that where I went, it was a pay what you could. And at the time, I couldn't pay a lot. And gosh, that was just such a gift to be able to have access to something like that when I didn't have the means. So that was my next step, was going into counseling. And that was, very intense, getting to talk to a real person about the things you're going with and being challenged about things in your past or having to relive some of those things that might have led to how you're feeling now. So that's really how it went. But I think part of your question was what was that like? And the stigma is so huge. I think there's a lot of stigma towards mental health, and I think it's waning, which is great. I should just say, especially for men, I think we're told often to be tough and be strong and don't express your feelings, and it's such a negative thing. And so I think for me, I felt like I had a problem and that I was broken in some way by accepting that I had to go to therapy. But what I've realized now is actually being able to go and talk about these things is strength and it's vulnerability
Yeah.
and it's courage. And I actually work at a mental health company, and what we have referred to this moment of going to get therapy is as a moment of courage for people,
Yes.
because it takes so much courage to go and bare your true self to someone and say, hey, I need help. But realistically, we all need somebody to talk to and lean on from time to time.
Oh, I I completely agree. And I know there's so many people out there who, yeah, that moment of courage, and it is daunting. And I just really appreciate what you said about, kind of overcoming those thoughts of I'm broken or I have a problem. Did you ever worry that your therapist was going to judge you for some of, what you were going to talk about? And how did you overcome that fear, or what did you find out once you were in counseling?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's always that fear, right? Because you go through so much of your life feeling these things and they become like private almost. And like there's a lot of shame there often. And so when you go in and you have to open that box of shame for someone you don't really know, like yeah, you feel like, oh, they're gonna just think I'm the worst person ever. Um, but I think one thing is that if you have dark thoughts or negative thoughts or anxiety, any of these things, like every human is wired to experience similar things. We all have thoughts amazing and not so great, and that's just natural. And I think by being able to speak to them in therapy is almost like exposure to, hey, like humans, this is what humans are. This is
Yep.
this is things we say and things we think and things we do, and having someone be there to accept those and know that it's safe in that space. It's just so powerful. And for me, there was a time where I was very scared of how someone would react. And now, by talking about them, I have those feelings and thoughts less.
Mhm.
And also, I can more like wave at them as they pass by now,
Yeah.
and be like, "Oh yeah, there was a thought. Didn't like that, but see you next time. Thanks for stopping by."
Oh, I love that. That's yeah, that's incredible. I like that noting. See you next time thought. Um, Okay, so I love that journey. I love that with your meditation, your therapy. So I want to come back to then how this impacted your album and even some of these
Yeah.
specific songs. So let's talk specifically about one of my favorite songs of yours, The Wave of Panic. Can you tell us about this song? You know, I mean, I encourage everyone to put this song on, but tell us, yeah, just give us the story of this song specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I feel like I remember the night that I got the idea for the song so well. So I was having a panic attack and I was alone in my room and it was a basement kind of garden level, so really dank and just
Yeah,
kind of like not a great place for me at the time. You know, my mattress was on the floor because I couldn't afford something to put it up on. I remember just sitting there and I was having this panic attack, probably triggered by like the dishes or something. Who knows? Like something really small, or
yeah,
felt small to me at the time, or it felt large to me at the time, feels smaller now. And I was in my room and I just felt really alone. And I remember reaching for YouTube actually and typing in like panic attack help. And
mhm,
what came up was a video where someone was explaining the concept of writing out a note card to yourself for when you have these sensations again the next time, that you can pull it out and remember, like, you write on the card like you're not having a heart attack, you're gonna be okay, you've been through this before, you are not your thoughts and your thoughts aren't you. And writing that out on the card, just have it in your back pocket or something.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so I wrote that card out, but then I realized, well, I'm a songwriter. I write my note card as a song, and it's
Yeah.
actually helpful because as a performer, I get nervous on stage still, and it's important to remember those things as well. So really, that was the start of the song, and I think I went and I wrote probably the bridge first. I think I wrote "You're not alone, you're not your thoughts aren't you," and that really was what got it started. And then that just kickstarted me thinking, what is this experience like? And I think as I got to the end of the video, they mentioned that you just have to ride the wave of panic.
Yeah.
You have to know that it's coming and just kind of accept that you're on this ride, but that it will be done. It will end. And try to be aware of when you feel better and when it dissipates. But that when it catches you, just to ride it out, and use the tools you've got, use that card, use your breathing exercises, and bring yourself back from that ride as much as you can.
Wow. That's incredible. Do you still have the note card? Do you still have your note
I
card?
don't know. I probably do have it somewhere, but I think for me it's probably the song at this point.
Yeah.
To the point where I don't have it on me at the moment, but my partner, she actually made me a bracelet that had uh, those "you are not your thoughts and your thoughts aren't you" on the
Yeah.
inside of it. So I have things
I
that
love
are
that.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I really love that, you took a tool. So first there's a few, I want to unpack this just in a few ways. Um, because I love that first you went to social media. You went to YouTube
Hmm.
to find to use social media for good
Yeah,
and
for
find a
connection.
solution to something that you were immediately experiencing. So I want to recognize that. And then I also want to recognize that, with that idea of a note card and you putting that letter to yourself, and I call it a
Hmm.
letter, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely.
you really took those emotions and you brought them out and you put them on paper. I think, I'm a huge notebook fan, huge. And that's
Yeah.
something I do as well. Mine is just a little bit more written. I'm not a songwriter, so it's a little bit more written, but I love that you put it on a notepad. And then I loved, because you are a songwriter, you used your gift, like your creativity to turn that into what I believe is one of the most powerful songs I've ever heard
Well,
about
thank you.
anxiety and about mental health and about, the panic attacks, and
Hmm.
something that I know we're starting to address more and more, but I truly, like, honestly, JC, I know this is a little silly, but like, I want to thank you for using your experience and your talent in that way, because this is what is helping remove the stigma. So thank
Yeah.
you. Like really thank you for doing that. I hope that everyone enjoys that song. Please go listen to it. I really kind of want to close us out here, JC. I want to talk, I know I was said I want to talk a little bit about your Kickstarter. I don't know if we're going to have time in today's segment to get into that, like in deep specifics, but I do want to keep going just a little bit into social media.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
that you're currently on social. I know that we just had that example of how you use social for something else, but I want to talk a little bit about how you utilize social media now for your
Mhm.
creative art form, and just what you really find works to connect with your
Mhm.
audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when we were talking about YouTube, that, it's really about connection. And what I love about the name of your company is keeping social media social. As a lot of times, I think if we can use social media as a conduit to see people as who they are and to potentially facilitate that interaction in person, if that
Yes.
is the next step. And so for me, when I think about it, like just today, I'm looking and I'm seeing what of my friends are performing tonight. Who can I go support and who can I give that reassurance to that, hey, you're going to have a friend there in the audience with you, as well as talking about upcoming shows, talking about things you're excited about, even getting, I think it's important to be really honest. And I think that's one of the things that I really learned when we had our consultation was you were talking about just trying to be yourself as much as possible, and having that almost be a raw thing that is put up there to make sure that's real and that it's true. So for me, if I'm going to be talking about a show or something, I want to talk about why that show is important to me, or like what the where the area is the show is that's important to me, or the song that's important to me, or the people I'm playing with. There's always something that you can be real with, and just talk about how it makes you feel and be honest about it. And to me, that is probably the best way for connection. And people can tell when something doesn't feel right
Yeah.
and doesn't connect. And I imagine everyone has had that moment where they post something and they can just tell it didn't feel right, and they go and press that delete button and they take it right back down. You know, like follow your gut for what feels really good and what feels right. And yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but I just think it's about that connection. It's about keeping relationships with people and being honest and trying to keep as much of your true physical real self present in your social media.
Yeah.
And yeah, just express who you are as much as you can.
I love that. And what I want to call out is one of the things that you led with from how you utilize social media for good, and then also how you utilize social media even within your career, is that you look to see who you can support.
Yeah.
Wow. Leading, do you know what I mean? Leading with that,
Hmm.
having that be your mindset, not just showing up. How many people do we know on social media? Maybe artists, maybe musicians, that they show up to social media and it is all about themselves. It is all about either their drama or their record or their thing or their this, and it's them all the time.
Hmm.
And it's a completely one-sided use of a
Hmm.
platform
Yeah.
that is meant, again, to connect us and be social. But how could you ever connect, and how could you truly be using social media to the most extent if you're not using it to support and absolutely sing from the rooftops the success of others? Now,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love that. I am so stoked that you just led with that. Um,
Yeah, and like it's important to build the environment that you want
yeah,
on social media. That includes who you follow. Like, if you want a more positive outlook, if you want less negative things going on in your brain, follow more positive accounts. Let the other stuff go that isn't serving you in
yeah,
that way, and make sure that you're reaching out and putting that positive energy and support out to the people you really do care about. Show them you're there and show them you're with them,
yeah.
and then show up in person.
Yep. Show up in real life.
Carry through. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, I love that. Well, this magazine is all about this new season. You know what I mean? We're coming into a new season. We're really coming in. Things are blooming. A lot of people are growing. And I'm really excited because I see you as just absolutely ready to explode with growth. It's going to be, there's this tree, by the way. I forget the name of it, but this is true. There's this tree that, like, for a very long time, it grows not much at all. And then, like, overnight, it grows a ton. And I feel like that is what is going to happen, with you and your music. And I'm not sure when it
Thank you.
will, but I'm calling it right now. It's going to happen. And we want to be a part of supporting you in that. So I want you to tell us, us as the Keep Social Media social community, how can we support you on social, and how can we support you in real life?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think they're super connected. The first thing is, just listen to the music. Let me know what you think. Like, I want to hear from you, and like, if there's a song that connects with you, please let me know. So it'll be my album Blackout Poetries on anywhere you stream your music, Spotify, iTunes, Napster, LimeWire, probably. Maybe not, just kidding. But wherever you listen to your music, you can find Blackout Poetry and my stuff. Listen to it there, and then connect with me about it on Instagram or Facebook. I love Instagram the most, so reach out to me there. I'll be sure to respond to you, and if you can come to a show, love to meet you.
Yes. Okay. So, and we can come to a show. How do we also collaborate with you? Like, how, if someone is watching this and they've got a restaurant or they've got, I don't know, a concert hall, how do we book you?
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram is a great place to reach out. I'm always checking my DMs there, or by email. You can check out my official website, jcjamesanderson.com, and you can reach out to me there.
Awesome.
And
And are
yeah,
you open to, like, private parties? Like, if a company was going to have a grand opening or something and they wanted like your live music there, can you just tell us, like, what do you really want to play?
yeah, absolutely. The things I really want to play are like house shows, actually, and
Okay.
more intimate venues because I like to get to really know the people that I'm seeing in the audience. To me, it's a two-way street of energy, and to talk about these things that I talk about on my record and really just dive into that human experience together. But I'm also totally open for coffee shops, restaurants, things like that.
Yeah.
Really, really pretty open. I just love playing music, and if it's not a fit for me, I can guarantee you I can find somebody who it is a fit for.
I love it. Well, JC, is there anything else you want to share with us, before we wrap up today?
No, just thank you so much for your time, keeping social media social, and for all of your help in like making that Kickstarter possible for me. That really gave me a lot of confidence to get off the ground and running. And yeah, so thank you so much. And yeah, thank you to everybody who supported that Kickstarter and my record.
Absolutely. Okay.